Live. Well, hello, everybody. Again, it's that time. We are now going to jump into From the Ground Up, where we talk to entrepreneurs about their business journeys. But first of all, we want to do all the housekeeping. So make sure you like, comment, and subscribe to my channel so you don't miss anything that is dropping, which are weekly drops. Also, if you are listening and you want to see it live, jump on YouTube, and vice versa. If you're watching me on YouTube and you want to listen to it, jump on Podbean and you can check me out there. So now that we've gotten all of that out of the way, we can jump right into our guest. You want to introduce yourself and tell us what you do?
Yes. Hello, everyone. I am Chaundria Singleton. I am a health and wellness coach, Healthy Choice Living, but I also have been a radiologic technologist for the last 21 years. I've been an educator, a speaker in the medical field, and that is all what I do. I love health and wellness. I love helping people to understand how they can be healthier. And many people have had radiology exams and don't know that they've had them or what they are. They assume we're nurses, but we are actually the third largest medical profession in the nation. And I'm here to talk about that and everything else you like to talk about.
Everything else. Okay, yeah, because I am not familiar. I mean, I'm familiar, obviously, with but you do actual education. I know that we needed education when it came to that. So this is going to be fascinating. So everybody strap it in and get ready to hear these gems that Chaundria is going to be dropping. So first of all, how does one get into the profession?
Yeah, so you have a few different ways. The traditional way and the way that I encourage, because I think long term.
Okay.
Because there are a lot of medical professionals out there or professions out there where you can do a 6-week course, an 8-week course. In the state of Georgia, you can take x-rays because it's not a licensure state just by being a medical assistant and taking an 8-hour course.
Wow.
You can take x-rays, but you're not a radiologic technologist. There's a big difference. And I'll talk about that a little bit more because I think that's important that people should know. Because I've been an auditor and going through places and I've seen some of the misleading things that people have no clue who's taking their x-rays.
Okay.
And I actually used to teach the radiation course for the state of Georgia. And I was appalled at just what people don't know. And I think people should know. And I love my profession and that's why I'm here to talk about it. But you get into it, you have an option. Back in the day, you could learn through the military. When I started, there were a lot of people in the field who got their training in the military because you have military bases that have their own hospitals. Mm-hmm. And that's where they train their nurses, their doctors. All medical professionals get training who are in the military, get their training from the military. They don't go to a medical school or a college. They get it right there in the medical field, which can be the best training, in my opinion. You're on the ground running, you're learning without all the tools and all the fancy things. And to me, those make some of the best technologists. The other option was back in the day, you had hospital-based programs. So you had Grady Hospital here in Atlanta, which is one of our largest trauma centers and burn units. They have their own school to this day. They still have their own school. They have several schools, ultrasound, radiation therapy, and x-ray school. That's big because now they've attached themselves to a university. In 2016, our National Licensing Board required that all education systems that teach radiology must be affiliated with a university system. Unless they were a private university, they could have their own education and didactic course within, but it had to still meet certain guidelines. So there's a big difference. So 2 years minimum. Now it's really about 4 years to become a radiologic technologist, to do specialty. So I do CT, MRI, mammography, and x-ray. I have 4 certifications. You can have up to 11 certifications. That's why we're one of the largest medical professions, because under medical imaging and radiology fall ultrasound, MRI, CT, radiation therapy, nuclear medicine, PET, CT, positron emission. That is a cancer treatment or a detection for cancer treatment. We have, I'm missing some, mammography. People get memos all the time. X-ray, diagnostic X-ray. And under those things, you have different things that you can do. So it's a lot of subcategories that fall under radiology, but most people have had them and they don't know that that is a radiology exam.
Okay. Got you. So you started off being a radiologist, taking films and different things like that. How do you move from that to now making it your own business to educate? Now, you still do take films and things like that. Is that in your own business or are you still working for the hospital or?
Yeah. So the beauty of our profession is what many people don't know is when I started, I went to school at Emory University Medical School. That's where I got my training at. And in those 2 years, we're learning on the job, especially like just getting our hands in there with the patients. Well, that's where I explored other opportunities under radiology. And I decided I wanted to do CT scans. Back in those days, you could learn them on the job. Now they require that you do certain exams, go to school for at least a year for a lot of the modalities.
Oh.
So I learned on the job, and it was a year of training along with my x-ray training. That is how I learned that profession. Then I went and took a state board license, a national license, and got registered in it. I did the same thing a few years later for MRI. On the job training, they didn't have schools then. That's how long I've been doing. They didn't have schools then. But I do recommend going to school. You can learn things on the job, but I think it's a little harder for you to grasp the physics of it because there's a lot of physics in it. It's not radiation for MRI, it's actual physics. So learning radiation biology versus physics was a little change for me. And then I learned so many machines because I became a travel technologist. That's one of the other opportunities that we have in our field. Like people here, nurses travel, but we travel as well. And we get paid actually more than nurses. People don't know that. We
Yeah,
make
that's
more money
become
than nurses.
a big thing. I know a lot of people now that are traveling California, just different places and doing it. So and it's nice. You get to see different places around the world. You know what I mean?
And
You're there for
make more money and can kind of call your shot. So that was the reason I started. I got mentored while I was in school by another technologist that felt like I worked hard. And she said, I feel like you should start your own business. And I was like, start my own business and what? She was like, radiology. It's like, what am I going to do? Like, I just had no clue. You know, when you're getting out of school, you really don't. I feel like even people that go to school for radiology don't understand the opportunities that they have underneath just that umbrella. People just think take x-rays and films of bones, but we do way more than that. The doctors rely a lot on us. We work with radiologists. So many people think that their own doctor who orders a MRI or a CT scan or whatever exam you get in radiology, that their doctor is going to read it. That's not the case. Your doctors is trying to figure out what's going on with you because it's not a clear picture. So they send you to radiology. We are literally the eyes to the insides of the body when the blood isn't telling it, when it's not really clear. They send you usually to ultrasound first, maybe x-ray, diagnostic x-ray, and then to CT, and then on further MRI and other tests. You start to go up the ladder of detailed imaging, depending on what you need. Our doctors, which are called radiologists, they can either specialize in MSK, which is like orthopedics, musculoskeletal. They can specialize in breast. You have certain radiologists, they only specialize in certain things, but there are many that specialize in a lot of them. And that's how you get the report or the reading that's sent back to your doctor.
Okay. So you guys are actually reading it? Because I know a lot of times they'll, you all after you get an x-ray or something, they'll say, oh, the doctor, we'll send it to the doctor. And then so we're thinking, yeah, okay, the doctor's reading it, letting us know what's going on.
Well, the doctor is the radiologist.
Okay.
The radiologist is the physician, just like you have cardiologists, pulmonologists, OBGYNs, you have radiologists. They are MDs, but they actually read and they perform radiology exams also. So I'll give you an example. Sometimes people have trouble swallowing and they can't figure out what's getting caught in their throat. Why are they aspirating? Babies born sometimes aspirate. Older people worked in a geriatric center and they swallow and they aspirate. They can't figure it out. So what we do as radiologic technologists is bring you in, put you under fluoroscopy, live x-ray, and have you drink a barium that highlights in the x-ray. And we get to see you actually swallow, eat applesauce, things like that. We want to see what's happening. So there's a little flap that sometimes doesn't close back up, which makes people aspirate. So we can actually see what's going on. Is there a tumor there? Is there a reason why that flap is not closing like it was designed? And the radiologist is the one performing that exam. Now things are so busy. They have a position. You ever heard of physician's assistants?
Mm-hmm.
So we have RAs, radiologist assistants, like a nurse practitioner, like a physician's assistants. They assist the doctor. We have radiologic technologists that assist our radiologist. It is a higher level of education. It's a master degree program that about 20 years ago, they started introducing. It has taken about this time now for it to really come full swing, where we have a large population of RAs who actually do those exams that a radiologist maybe focus on the more detailed and harder exams. So we as technologists actually have been doing those many times, with our trusted doctors. They've been assisting us in doing those things. So the things that the radiologist can legally have a technologist do, we are doing now.
Gotcha. So, as you mentioned, there's a lot of people in this field that don't even know what all can be happening underneath this field. So, that was a good little synopsis of what all can be done, because you might be going in for one thing, right? But then realize, hey, there's a whole lot of other things that I can do, have under my belt just in case, or, what have you. So, how does that now turn? And you mentioned that the lady you went to school with who mentored you said, hey, you need to start your own business. So then how does that come about? What does that look like?
Well, I just listened and I started my own business. I was a business owner before I went to radiology school. I had my own cleaning business. I've had a couple other businesses. And so I've always been an entrepreneur. I come from an entrepreneur side of family. So I always have my own business, even if it's not related to radiology. But she just gave me a couple ideas, which people I knew back then had their own staffing agencies in radiology. And I knew my mom used to own a temporary agency where she staffed secretaries and administrative assistants back in the day. And we used to type up things on a typewriter back in the day. We were her assistants. Yeah. So, so I was used to staffing companies. So that was nothing new to me. And I thought, I worked for these staffing people before. Why not have my own business where I cut the middleman out and I make my own money? It just made total sense to me. I feel like I can get out there and get the contracts. If they could do it, I could do it. And that's what I did. I started my business. I actually had no clients for the first 3 years.
Wow.
Not one client. I didn't know what to do. Like nobody was going to say, let me teach you how to take my clients.
Right.
That's not happening. Yeah. Right. So at that time, remember, things were a little different. Cancer treatment hadn't blown up the way it is now. Some of the hospitals were still very small. Our field, it just wasn't that large at that time. So I continued to work for other people. But I say this, I learned a lot about traveling at that time locally and what it took to be a traveler. I got, I kind of just learned the ropes at the ground floor first. And I got relationships with different facilities that I traveled through. And eventually what happens in the medical field is people move up to different positions. And those people, when you were the contractor, are not the higher position anymore. They retired out. Maybe those people that you worked with as a technologist are now the managers. So those relationships I feel are very important. And that's one thing I talk about on my social media is a lot of people ask me, well, how much do radiology technologists make? How much do MRI techs make? When I'm getting out of school, how much should I make? And I always tell people what I make, you should not be basing what you make off of what I make. You could be shorting yourself. The best way to know what you should make is network. Network, get to know people, because people then will be honest if they even tell you. If they tell you, you don't know if they're being honest what they're making. And I don't know anybody's going to show you their check. So the best advice I can give people in any business I've had that I've been in is learn your craft, be good at what you do, have a good reputation, and network with people. Yeah, that has always been the best thing that I have seen work. And then people would be more willing to help you to learn what you should be charging for your situation. Because for me, I don't travel out of state anymore. I've been able to stay within the state since the pandemic. I used to travel out of state a lot and do my contracts, but I haven't had to since the pandemic started. Things change.
Yeah, for sure. But I think that's good no matter what businesses do, to network, to get to know, all of those things. And so I say this all the time about business. It's an ebb and a flow. Sometimes you're making the money and sometimes you're not. But even when you're not, there's still things to do within your business, right? You still got to work your business. Like you said, you were making connections, you were networking. That's all a part of it. You know what I mean? It's not just about making the money piece. So even in your downtimes, you got to make the most out of those situations. And I think hands down, relationships, you can be bad at what you do, but if you got the right relationship, you're going to get a chance. I mean, it's sad to say you should definitely work on perfecting your craft, but a relationship sometimes can take you further than even your ability to do something.
You are so right about that. I mean, that is I like how you said that you could be, and it's true. Like I see people all the time and I'm like, how in the world? But they have solid relationships.
Absolutely.
Yes, solid relationships. If people could work on their relationship building skills, you don't have to work too hard.
You don't. Yeah, that's the truth. You really, really don't. But people don't get it. It's these attitudes. They don't want to play the games, and unfortunately, that is really what business is about.
it's a game. It really is. And people say, well, I just want to be my own boss. You still are going to have to answer to somebody. You have to play somebody's game. It's just what are you willing to do and what are you not willing to do?
Yeah.
It's a business, and that people need to feed their families just like you need to feed your family. And that's one thing I think really helped me. I was laughing the other day because I remember taking a travel job, and it was my first one. And I was so scared because nobody that I knew in the business really traveled. Mm-hmm. So everybody was too scared to travel. It's like, I don't want to give up my good job here. But really, honestly, compared to traveling, we were losing so much money by not traveling. The money travelers made in a 13-week period, people were making in 13 weeks what some people made in a year.
Wow.
Or what some people made in 6 months.
Yeah. Well, you would think you're charging more because you're traveling. I mean, first of all, you know what I mean?
You're away from family, but when you look at that nowadays, especially when the pandemic was happening, whole families were uprooting, and husbands were like, yep, I'm working remote. I'm going with my wife.
That's true. That's true. I've often wondered how that works though, because you're only there for a period of time, right? So I'm assuming that there are just places that rent to you for like a period of time. Because at one point in time, I'll be honest with you, I really, really thought about getting what I call a crash pad. Like even for stewardess, like that just need the crash pad. So I'm wondering, like, okay, is that what we're looking at? Just a crash pad for a certain amount of time? Because I can't imagine people are getting into leases and things like that when they're just there for a small period of time.
Well, so this is how it goes. You can it's all in how you negotiate your contract. You can choose. So I have some friends, they live in Mexico part of the year volunteering. He's a nurse. His wife is a stay-at-home mom. They have 2 little kids. He only travels in California. That's where I mostly travel. You make the most money in California. And they have the most jobs. I'm sorry. And they pay. So he would take a 13-week assignment 2 times out of the year, and they make enough money. And he had a friend that lived there. His wife would leave Mexico with the kids. They would all go to California, stay for 13 weeks, sometimes 16 weeks. And they would rent the bedroom of their friend's apartment, because he worked in San Francisco, which was where you make the best money in like that Bay Area. Mm-hmm. I've mostly worked in the Bay Area, sometimes in Bakersfield and other places, but the Bay Area is where the money is. And he would work in the Bay Area, and he would stay with his friend, and they would pay them a certain amount of money every month for that few little weeks they were there, and they pocket the rest. And then they just pay their rent up in Mexico, and then they just go back to Mexico, but they could live off of that easily. Other people may say, well, I want a trailer. So they'll own an RV, and they'll drive their RV wherever, and you negotiate in your contract, your mileage, your gas, all that kind of stuff like that. And you can negotiate either for them to find you a place. Most people don't do that because you do not want somebody else finding you somewhere to live.
In a strange place, right? No less.
I don't care if you're only there for 13 weeks. They will put you in. I've heard some horror stories.
I can imagine.
Yeah. Everybody does not stay in the same type of places.
Gotcha.
So they're going to try to probably find you the cheapest, and what's nice to somebody is not nice to you.
Absolutely.
So you have to be comfortable with it. So most people negotiate, give me whatever the rent would be for that area into my per diem, which is tax-free. You can take that money and do whatever you want to with it. You also get a car allowance. You could say, no, just give me the money instead of the car. So if you're close to the hospital, you could just Uber or walk and keep the money.
Yeah.
And they pay your food, that type of thing like that, plus your salary. So it's so many ways to negotiate. That's why I try to encourage people, don't just think about money. Even when you're trying to get a full-time position in healthcare or any job, you negotiate based off what's most important to you. Working close to home may get you less money hourly, or getting a 7 to 3 position or versus a 9 p.m. to 11 p.m. position, what might get you a little less money, but it's a regular hour where you're home with your family. Or you might want to just work weekends. Nobody else wants to work weekends, so that might get you more money.
Right.
But you're going to be by yourself probably and not have another technologist. You're going to have to move patients over. But it's just certain trade-offs that you give and get. Everything is not about money. Sometimes it's like, well, they're matching 6%. This place only match you 2.5%.
Right. So you got to look at the whole picture. I tell people all the time, you can't chase the money anyway, because you don't know when it's going to be there and when it's not going to be there. So the other things, you can kind of hang your hat on what your pension is going to look like, or what, the matching, as you mentioned, those things are going to be there regardless of anything else that happens. So you're absolutely right. You have to look at it. And if you're only chasing money, you're not going to be in it very, very long. Because
And even if you are, you have to still negotiate other things, because the more you make, the more you're taxed on. I mean, you could do the same thing with less money. So it's
are correct.
All on how you negotiate it. And I have a lot of friends who their kids are finishing out in radiology school now, because I'm like always preaching, if y'all go to school for radiology. I'm telling you, I know technologists. The beautiful thing about our modality is it doesn't break your body down. It's not as physical as nursing. It's not as stressful. And it's stressful. Don't get me wrong. We do not sit around and press buttons all day. People think we do, that we just sit back. We just are really good at pressing our buttons. But
I heard that.
But my thing is work smarter, not harder.
My husband says that all the time.
Yeah. And when I tell you the amount of people, I started this thing where in the state of Georgia, I'm trying to get together people that I know that are in the radiology field. And I'm going to branch out to others in the other medical field to kind of get a little networking group going. Because when you have a trusted group of people, then you're able to elevate where you are. And you don't have to work as long. I know people have been doing this for 45 years. I know people have been doing it for 10 years. They own their own imaging centers. There are technologists out there that own their own imaging centers. My husband he does radiology too, but he trained a young lady, and she called me up and she wanted to be my partner. I don't want to own an imaging center. It's just not one of the things I want to do. I don't want a brick and mortar anything. I like flexibility. But I think it's genius to own your own imaging center. And she's an ultrasound technologist. So this girl has been doing this probably 10 years. She was like, I knew I wasn't going to work in a hospital for anybody. I did that a little bit to get my experience. Her husband's an accountant. She got a business, opened up a little business. She does the scans, and now she has 2 other people doing the scans. She doesn't even scan anymore. I mean, if you think about just ultrasound, it's so many people I know who own their own ultrasound suites where people come in and get their own scans.
Wow. Okay.
Yeah, there's so many opportunities in what we do. I go into schools and try to encourage young people to look beyond, because my thing was everybody doesn't want to go to school to be a doctor. Everybody does not want to spend 15, 20 years of their life going to school to be in debt and not make that much more
than what. You're right, for less time in school.
Yeah, and be stressed out. I mean, for some, great. But for others, that's not an opportunity that they are willing to waste their time on or use their time.
And the liability insurance, the liability is crazy. So, y'all gotta listen to Chaundria, because she is telling y'all stuff now. She's giving it to y'all for free. So listen up.
I mean, and nursing, I love nursing. A lot of my family members are nurses. I just knew I didn't want to be one. I just did not. It wasn't my thing. But my uncle was in radiology, and my mom's friend was in respiratory. I actually thought I wanted to be a respiratory therapist. I started, didn't last but a week. I don't do well with mucus. I learned that. I realized that early on, and I was like, I'm not cleaning anybody's trachea out. It totally disgusted me. Okay. And they could pay good money too.
Yeah. I have a friend who does that. So
that's another hidden gem. But I'm here to talk about radiology. But that's another gem.
Another day, right? Another day.
I'm gonna tell you. I tell young people 2 years of your life, and you can always say, you know what? I got this 2 years up under my belt. I got this certification. I want to go to something else. 2 years is nothing.
No, it's not. At a blink of an eye, and you'll be through that.
Yeah. And I know techs one just messaged me on Instagram and said, I was asking techs, how long have you been in radiology? She was like, 45 years. 45 years. And she's like, I still can shoot x-rays. My body is just fine. My shoulder. I know nurses, their shoulders are out, their backs are out.
Yeah. I don't know if they are the professions that you're talking about are things that we typically present to our young people.
No, we don't. Right? Nobody presented it to me.
So they don't really know that. Like you said, it's the nurses, it's the doctors, it's all those type of things. If you're talking medical at all, and then you go to a different field. So Yeah, I mean, and like you said, it doesn't take that much time. And a lot of times when kids are even looking at those professions, they're thinking about they just getting out of school. Like I didn't went to school for 12 years. Now you want me to go for 12 more? Like that's not happening,
And
right?
see, this is the other thing that I try to tell. I have a whole thing on this. My nieces got out of high school with associate's degrees.
Mm-hmm.
I don't know
Mm-hmm.
about any other state, but Georgia has a program. I wish they had it when I was in school. It started after I graduated. If they would have had this when I was in school, I would have graduated with my bachelor's degree and been done. I'm not even going to lie. You can graduate with almost an associate's. Now, they just changed the law, but this was just this year. He changed the law where you get 32, I think, credit hours, not a full
Okay.
associate's, but still it's free.
Yeah.
You could start at the 10th grade, and I think most states have it. You could start at the 10th grade and do like a college program where you can go take college courses, but you have to do your stuff in high school and get to that
Sure.
point where
Yeah.
you
Yeah.
are not behind. You have to take care of your stuff in high school, and you'll have a way to be able to do your college and your high school at the same time. So part of the day
Mhm.
you're in high school, the other part you go to college
Right.
and take your courses. That is free schooling.
You know what? I think that should be mandatory in all schools. We do have some schools like that here in Maryland where you're doing that, and then we have some other schools where you go half a day, and then you go to the community college, but they pay for that. But I think that everybody should have access to that. Like that is phenomenal.
Everybody in Georgia, I don't know about Maryland, has access, but I'm gonna tell you, I literally tell parents, they're like, well, I mean, if they want to do it, why do they have a choice? I
Yeah.
mean, it
Yeah.
makes no sense to why
Yeah.
you should not be taking advantage of something free that you're paying your taxes for. Your kids are already in school while their brain is still in school mode. At
Absolutely.
least get the associates. And
Yeah,
then
for
after
sure.
that, they
For
can figure
sure.
out, okay, got all my prereqs done. Now I can go get XYZ, or I can go take my trade.
Yeah. And it doesn't seem burdensome. I find a friend of mine is running another program right now with kids, and their options are like military and sports. Like that's what they think, military and sports. Like it's nothing else. And it's like we have got to expand the minds to know that there is more out there because that's just not it. Like there are other options, but we could talk about that forever because
Yeah.
that's one of my pet peeve. I actually work in the school system as well. So
Oh, okay. Do
yeah.
you?
Yeah. So
And
yeah.
there's so many grants for medical professions. Like I went to a
Okay.
private university, one of the largest private universities here in Atlanta, medical schools, and it was costly. But I'm gonna tell you, I wrote essays. I got $500 here, $1,000 here. You just write these essays. They are out there, and then
Yeah.
the state has government money for need-based medical programs that they give you. You just have to work it back off. So I
Okay.
worked in the state for 2 years to pay them back their money.
Wow, that's nice.
Yeah,
Good to
every
know.
state has it. And it's for mostly allied health, nursing, anything medical is a need-based
Gotcha.
program.
Gotcha. Yeah. And I bet during COVID, boy, oh boy, it was probably out of this world what they needed, right?
Yeah, I just wish it wasn't talked about when I was growing up. Only thing I really heard was nursing, nursing. And we do need nurses. We do need nurses. There are a lot of subspecialties you can go into, but everybody is not good at chemistry.
Right.
Everybody's not good at math. And you do need to be good at those things because you're mixing medications.
Mm-hmm.
And
Mm-hmm.
every medication is not going to be mixed the same thing and drawn up the same
Absolutely.
way.
Right. For sure. For
What
sure.
I do in radiology, we have to draw up nuclear dyes and things like that. You still got to be able to do some math.
Right. Yeah.
But it
Not as intense.
well, you can't mix up insulin versus because you draw insulin up totally different than you do other stuff.
Right.
Like you can
Right.
kill somebody. With our dyes,
Right.
you can kill someone too, but it's something we do on a regular. We're not doing all these different medications.
I got you. It's
When I
the
work
same
if I
one.
work in nuclear medicine, I'm doing nuclear things. When I work in a CT, I'm doing iodinized or gastric, certain other dyes that I'm doing in that profession. MRI, I know what dyes I'm using.
Yeah.
I'm in mammo, I know I'm doing biopsies and which ones to use to pull the tissue out. It's
Yeah.
just certain things when you're in that one modality.
Yeah. And that's
Yeah.
kind of nice too, because I do know that those things intimidate people. The
Yeah.
thought of having to do the math, the thought of having to do all those things is intimidating. So to know that you can still be in that profession, have a lower level of that math, or at least the same thing that you're doing over and over again. So, you know what I mean? You can get good at that one particular thing, I think is,
And it's just two different professions, you have to figure out what you're good at.
Mm-hmm.
You know, for me, chemistry was not my thing in high school. It just was not my thing. Now, physics, any other science, could do it with my eyes closed. And
Mm-hmm.
that's why you prep your children in high school, because you learn from the 8th grade on. I was able to decide which diploma direction I was going in for
Sure.
college courses, but you have to be involved as a parent too. Your kids can't just make that decision. You have to be
Yeah.
involved to help them to see, okay, you're kind of scoring low on the chemistry and the trig and the calculus.
Right.
That's
Right.
not your thing, but
Yeah.
you're great over here in this. So let's
Right.
focus more on, this direction.
Yeah. Yeah. Sometimes I figure we're targeting the wrong groups. Like we need to target parents so that we can get to the kids, because targeting the kids sometimes is like it has to be a group effort. Everybody has
Yeah.
to be on board. Everybody's got to buy into the program.
Yeah.
But I wish we would see more parent involvement before it's too late. Like
Yeah.
by the time you're a senior and we're looking at graduation, it's too late. We're like adulting. You know what I mean? So yeah, again, we could talk about that all day long. But I hear what you're saying. But that's definitely good to know. Okay, so now you decide this is what I'm going to do. I'm going to get into my own practice. I'm going to travel. I'm going to do what I do. No longer work for anybody. How long have you been doing that? Like from the start of when you finished school to you decided I'm now going to have my own business. What did that time frame look like?
Yeah. So I graduated in 2002. I officially started my business in 2005.
Okay. Okay. So
Yeah.
not even super long.
No, immediately. I should have gotten it sooner, but I really didn't believe in myself. I didn't know what she was talking about and that's why I say when I started working for other people that were technologists who had their own agencies, and I was like, only reason those people got those contracts was because they had relationships with the directors of those hospitals. I didn't have those relationships.
Mm-hmm.
I was new in the game. I didn't know any of those people.
Right.
So I had to work for them, but it taught me how to go in as a contractor, how to work on different types of machines. It built my confidence because as a contractor, you are not working on a brand new equipment. You're not working with somebody else. And most of the time, the people don't want to train you because you're making more money than them. So they're resentful that you're there. So you got to kind of figure it out. You have to be an independent worker. You have to be a go-getter. You have to be able to think on your feet because radiology is not easy. It's not really repetitive because every patient is totally different. And you still have to be able to employ physics, radiation. And if you do more than one modality, your brain has to switch in between. Like I do CT and MRI, the present contract I'm in.
Okay.
Not at the same time, but in the same day. So 1 minute I might have a CT scan, the next minute I have an MRI. Totally different modalities, totally different contrast, totally different ways to scan the same body part. So, and it is high speed. I have to put in IVs. We do our own IVs.
Oh, okay.
Yeah, we put in our own IVs. I when I work in the hospital, I have nurses that'll send, unless they're from the ER, and the ER nurses know how to put in IVs. ER doctor and nurse are nothing to play with. But yeah, I used to float around the hospital and put IVs in. That's one of the things that I really honed in on as a skill. And the reason I say really hone in on your skills, because I wound up getting into research, working with three of the top research facilities here, brain research facilities here, all because of my IV skills.
Okay.
Nothing to do with radiology. It had nothing to do with radiology, but I was able to contract myself to these research facilities because they needed someone to be able to put IVs in because they had to draw blood.
Got it.
And I'm thinking, you guys pay people like good money to do. I'm like, I would stick as many people as you need.
Well, let me tell you, that is a skill because I have told a many a person, you try one, you get one try. You're not gonna. I'm not a pincushion, right?
Yeah.
Or walked out black and blue because people don't know how to do that.
Yeah.
So listen, I applaud people who can hone in on that craft because I can't take it when they moving that thing all around trying to figure out what it is. I'm like, oh.
Yeah, you got to know where it's at bore you stick. So
yeah. So definitely that's a skill.
Yeah, we put in IVs. We have to run certain labs, because like say with CT scans, we have to give an iodine-based contrast that is excreted through the kidneys. So some people have had a CT of the abdomen. They drink that contrast.
Yeah.
Yeah. So that contrast is to highlight all your intestinal tract, your stomach, everything. So they can make sure there's nothing growing inside your intestines, nothing there, infection or anything like that. And then we put an IV in and inject the iodine-based dye. But we have to make sure your kidneys can excrete that contrast out. So it's required that in 30 days, if you're over 60 or if you have high blood pressure or diabetes, we have to make sure if you fall under any one of those three categories, we need labs within the last 30 days that tell the creatinine or your values of your lab. That
Gotcha.
tells how well your kidneys work, your creatinine level. So
Mm-hmm.
if you are over a 1.4, which gives us a, GFR, granulo, I forget the whole word, but it basically tells whether, and some places don't use this anymore because it gives African Americans, it's kind of disproportionate, discriminatory because African Americans get 10 points added.
Mm.
And our kidney function is not always, number one, compared to other races, the same. So to add 10 points can be detrimental to us when we're already kind of low. So a lot of places have gotten rid of that because the
Okay.
Kidney Foundation has shown that that's discriminatory, and they've seen a lot more African Americans lose kidney function by using that GFR rating. So your kidney function creatinine should not usually be over 1.4, 1.5. That's when we're basically saying you're in stage 3 or more kidney failure. So your kidneys will not be able to excrete that contrast without doing damage to your kidneys.
Mm-hmm.
So we have to know that. And we have to know certain lab values to be able to do that. That's why I tell people, we literally just do not sit there and scan it. We have emergency things in. We have to recognize pathology as well. We may not read the scans, but as technologists, you still are responsible for recognizing pathology. So if I get a patient that comes to the ER and they're complaining of abdominal pain, and a doctor wants us to do a CT scan of the abdomen and pelvis, I just send it on back or take my time sending it back and don't really get it read fast enough. That person has appendicitis. I missed that. They could die because I was not looking at my imaging. We still are responsible for looking at the imaging, getting it sent over to the radiologist in a specific amount of time. And then if we see something on there, we are held responsible for making sure we get that to the radiologist in a stat manner.
Gotcha.
Yeah.
So basically, I would imagine no matter what your profession is, you need to look at it and see how you can leverage other aspects of that business, right? To serve you. Like you said, drawing of the blood is one aspect that now you can leverage, right? To do other things. So no matter what your business is, there's multiple layers of that. So you need to see what you can do to leverage out those other aspects to create income, to create relationships, so that if this one is not flowing, then this one is flowing over here. You have multiple streams of income. So I think that is definitely a good tip, that when you're sitting looking at your business, kind of look at it like, okay, where else can I kind of see my way to be able to fill in another gap? So I think that is definitely awesome. And I'm going to be relooking at mine to see what else I can do.
Yeah, a lot of people don't think about it. I taught for 7 years. I never planned to be in education. Number one, it doesn't make any money in radiology. Like college education, it is not, compared to what we make in the hospital, we don't make that kind of money in education.
I don't think education pays well in any format.
Well, I know radiology education for the college level, when you start trying to leave the hospital to go into education, it's usually people are looking to retire into education. I got offered a position. I almost didn't take it, but it was a remote position. And I was like, you know what? I can learn something from this. I've never been in education. And then it was with the state. So I was like, hey, I'll get a pension if I stay 5 years. Never know how that might, years later, that might be a little extra income down the road when I need it and I'm not working, so that's extra 5. I wound up staying 7.
Oh, wow. So you must have liked it.
No, I didn't. I'm not even going to lie. I did not like it. I hate to be so serious about that, but I'm just telling the truth.
That's right.
I would not go back into education. It was too political. That's just not my thing. Yeah, it's just not my thing. I'm trying to find a nice way to say that, but yeah, just not my thing. I just feel as though, I don't like jobs where people want to try to set you up. To me, I really went in to share what I knew with the students. And I did not realize how different it is trying to teach grown people. It's different than teaching kids. It is very different. It was a learning, but I took positive from it because I learned how to deal in an environment like that I had never been in before. That was, it's different from the hospital.
Mm-hmm.
Hospital is totally different too. Just like any other business,
Sure.
any other company.
Yeah. Yeah.
Everybody has their own every type of position has its own personality. Education was very eye-opening for me. Yeah, when one regime leaves, you probably better leave with that regime.
Or you better think about before you take a position what that regime's going to look like too. Yeah.
Yeah, and it may be great, but once that regime retires, you probably better go ahead and leave because whoever comes in want to bring their own people in.
For
So,
sure. Yeah. Yeah. Bring their own people in, the whole new structure, ideas, the
which
whole
is
gamut.
fine,
So,
but they don't want you there, and they know they can't just fire you. So it's just it was really interesting. But what I took from it, I learned a skill called instructional design. I did not know what that was, and I didn't know I even learned it. And this is what I would like to say. When you talk about pivoting, using what position you have and pivoting into another business,
mm-hmm.
I had to create my own course curriculum.
Mm-hmm.
I was not given what all the other instructors were given, which was a whole test bank.
Right.
See, you're educated, you know about that.
Yeah.
I was never in education. I didn't know that. 7 years, nobody ever gave me the test bank. I created my own test. I created my own PowerPoints. I made my own images because I had to teach people cross-sectional anatomy.
Oh, wow.
I had to get my own imaging, show people I'm a virtual instructor, create my own stuff. Now, honestly, it would have looked better if I was able to use the test bank that they gave, but I had a 98% pass rate.
That's good.
For 7 years.
Yeah.
Off of what I made.
And
imagine if
I had curriculum and syllabus yourself. Wow.
Imagine if I had the tools that every other teacher had.
You'd went too far. And it would have
looked good. Like I feel like I would have learned even more. I would have been, but I realized that didn't happen.
Not everybody wants you to look that good.
And everybody don't want you to succeed. But
you can't shine that bright.
And you don't even know what you're doing. Like I had never been in education before. I had no clue. I remember being up sometimes 24 hours trying to create this because I had to create it before the deadline. But one thing I did learn from it was how to create a curriculum, how to build a whole program. And I actually when I left that, it was time for me to go. And I went on the left, told him, I'm gonna depart. It's my time to leave. And I was reached out on LinkedIn by a very large university with a radiology program, asked me to help them develop their MRI program. I was like, wow. And then I started meeting all these other educators from California, networking. They were, and I was upfront and told them my experience. Each one of them had a similar experience being an adjunct professor. They were like, yeah. Something similar happened to me. Like they were like, yeah, we just all need to stay connected. Anything you ever need, anything we need, let's connect together. And that's where it goes back to networking, and
you can get what you need.
And find like-minded people because you're not the only one that this happened to. But
absolutely.
What can you get from it? I got a pension out of it, 2 more years than I needed.
And you know what else? That was your work, so you could take it with you. So
exactly.
if you need to use it for that other position, it's yours.
Yep.
You know what I mean? No one can take that from you. So it may have been the long way around, but it's something else to add to your resume. And I say this all the time. Sometimes you do things not for the money, not because you want to, but because it's going to add to your resume.
Yeah.
Right? You're going to be able to use it at some other point, some other time. You may not know when or where, but you have it. You own that.
Yep. Right? And that's what I said. I look at it and I said that they cannot take that from me. And I was proud of the work that I did. 98% pass rate with no help. I was like, wow, that was pretty decent. That was that was pretty decent. The fact that all my students passed and they all got their registry passed on the first go round. And so that's why I just say, what you go through, just take something from it because you can learn from any experience. You can learn something from somebody that does not like you.
You got it.
But it's up to you to take from it and say, how can I use this to pivot? How can I use this to help me make money? Because you can pull something out of it.
Yeah.
Pull something out of it and move forward.
Yeah, but if you're so busy being angry about how you were treated or what it looked, you're gonna miss all that, right? You're
Yeah.
gonna miss all of that. So, part of being in business, I mean, because it's just a part of it.
Yeah.
You're gonna get scammed. I'll use that word. You're gonna get, there's gonna be bad things that happen, right?
Right.
We could talk about business and entrepreneurship, and we could talk about how great it is. I set my own hours. I travel. All of that's wonderful, right? But the other part of that happens too, right?
Yep.
Lose money, people scam you. It's all these things that happen on the flip side of that too. But what you have to do in order to not get bitter and not flow out of your rhythm is to realize, okay, what am I supposed to learn from this? Because it's okay to have something bad happen as long
Right.
as you learn from it and it doesn't happen twice, right? So I think we have to also realize that that is just part of being in business. You got to expect that because
Yeah.
it's going to come. You know what I mean? But like you said, you got to take that and decide what you're going to learn from it to be able to be better on the other side forward. So yeah, I totally, definitely get that on all wavelengths. So I think, so is your husband, you said he does the same thing? Is he in business for himself too? Or is he,
No.
you guys
He
do this
works.
together?
Yeah. Sometimes he works for me.
Oh, I love it. Works for you.
Sometimes he works for me. It's so funny. So I don't mind. I'm loyal when I'm working for you and I sign my contract with you. I'm going to finish what I say I'm going to do. But I am not ashamed or afraid to move on when something better fits me, because I have learned that people are going to do what's best for them. And you have to do what's best for you. Now, it may mean everybody's not made to be an entrepreneur.
Right.
That is not in everybody's blood. Some people do better and it's less stress for them to get a check every week and get what they want to make and have a schedule they want. They like a routine.
Yep.
For me, I like a routine, but I'm totally okay with I look
Making
at
it for yourself.
if I could work 6 months versus a year, oh, I'm going for the 6 months. That might mean me working third shift, but I don't care. I can work third shift. Or, it might mean budgeting my money better so that that money can stretch for a year. That's what I may have to do. It may mean me buying my own insurance, but that means just making sure I charge enough where I can pay that insurance and still pay myself.
Right.
And getting a good CPA to help me, budget and do things correctly tax-wise.
Yep.
And stay out of tax trouble. Because that's where you get in trouble a lot of times, not paying your taxes right.
You absolutely do. I tell people all the time, this part of the business is fun, creating, talking to people and all of that, but you better have the back end. You better take some time. And if you're not a back end person, you better hire someone to be the back end, because you're right. That will get you out of business quick. Quick. And in a whole lot of trouble. So yeah, you definitely need to give that some consideration. So
yeah, he works for me once, and because I had a job I couldn't do because I haven't done X-ray itself in 21 years.
Wow.
So he does X-ray. He focuses on the OR. He does that. He does a little MRI, but he likes the OR. It's his thing. I hate working in the OR. It's too cold. It is freezing cold in the OR, and the machines are too big for me to pull. Gotcha. So just not my thing. He loves it. And the doctors love him. He's in the OR. They just love him. Oh my goodness. It's him and a couple other guys. We're all friends. And they all work in the OR and the doctors just love them. So I had a job up, I think it was in Michigan somewhere or something, that needed to train some nurses and doctors on some radiology OR equipment. And I was like, it's been 20-something years, but I didn't want to turn the job down. So I was like, yeah, we could do it. I was like, honey, you need to take off work. I got this job. He was like, I don't know. You could take off. This is how much it's paying. And he was like, he was a little nervous. We went, child, I didn't think I was going to be able to get my husband back to his job. Because we got the hotel, you get your hotel, your rental car. I stayed in the hotel and worked, went to the gym every morning. Dropped him off a couple of times at the facility because he's there all day in the OR with the doctors, teaching them, and the nurses coming through. He's doing the in-service. We did the whole presentation and the handouts and stuff for them. Oh my goodness. He was like, is this how they, I was like, this is how they do it. This is how they
get used to this.
Oh, he was like, I could get, I said, I know, I've been telling you. It's different. It is so different. You just got to taste it.
Right. And that's always the hard part, like jumping out there, like,
It is hard. It's very hard because sometimes I know, like, even the pandemic, when the pandemic happened, I had a hospital. I always keep a PRN hospital job. I've always had, which is an as needed job. You're not full time, but you get paid more because you don't get benefits by the hospital, but they just need you when they need to fill in. Somebody's on vacation.
right.
So I usually kept like 5 PRN jobs. And during the pandemic, everybody lost their hours, even healthcare workers, because they just did not have the exams that were non-emergency happening anymore.
Right.
So my PRN jobs, I had 3 months worth of work that just dried up. All my traveling work dried up. It was just done. I could have traveled, but I was like, I really didn't want to put myself out there like that during the pandemic. And I had worked enough to where I didn't have to. So I was grateful for that. But my husband, he still worked, but they switched him to nights. And it was just so interesting. After that, we were like, PRNs come in handy. Having that extra little job comes in handy. But you see how quickly things can dry up. So it made people more open to being travel techs, because prior to that, a lot of technologists were like, you are crazy. They used to always tell me, you are crazy. You don't have any stability. I've never been without a job. And I have not worked full time since I went and did a 312 full time for 2 years because I needed to get some stuff done. We had a couple deaths in the family and I couldn't travel at the time. My dad was dying and I needed to be close to home. And then my father-in-law had a stroke. So I needed to be in the city. So I took a 3 days a week, 12-hour job and right by my house. And it was fine. They gave me what I wanted an hour. It fit my situation. But as soon as I was done, that was the second full-time job I've ever had in the 21 years that I worked in radiology. I've never been without a job. And I tell people that, and now people are seeing it after the pandemic. It's like anything can happen. There's no job that's secure. So while you're making the money, make the money. Do things that you're going to be able to make the most money in the shortest amount of time. Think about contracting yourself out. We have skills that we don't even know we have. I use my education. I use the fact that I know almost every machine in radiology. That if somebody calls me and says, hey, I have a Hitachi MRI scanner, do you know how to use it? Yep, I sure do. I haven't had scanned on one in years, but I know it.
Right.
I know what I do, which is MRI. So I just need to know the software and I can figure that out. That's not hard. And I think if we have more confidence in what we've been doing for years, many people have been doing whatever it is they've been doing for years. Maybe you do it because you love it. Maybe it's a hobby, but somebody out there will pay you for it.
I know that's right.
Somebody will pay you for it. Like, even podcasting, a lot of us like to talk, and we have things we could talk about. It's amazing. I was in a cohort with some podcasters and it's this father that has his son on a podcast. It's called Kids something, but I forget the name. It's a kids podcast talking about what they did today in school. The amount of downloads this child's podcast has and the sponsors this child's podcast has. Now, I couldn't listen to it long, but I'm going to tell you, I know my nieces could listen. They would think it's the best podcast ever.
Yeah. We live in a climate where I always say they pay people to eat. You know what I mean? It ain't my thing, but I know my husband watches people eat on the internet.
My mom does too.
Crazy. I'm like, why you eat? But listen. So if you ain't working, I don't understand it personally. I really don't. I was talking to my niece and she was saying, I said, listen, you got about 4 or 5 kids. You just need to go on and plug up your phone and record.
Yeah.
Because people live for that.
They do. Yeah. I mean, and it's just when people say, I don't know about that. I'm not sure what I want to do. I just go back to think about what you do on a daily basis. I go on YouTube and search things. And people are not really that good at explaining. They don't have fancy recording stuff. They don't have, like they literally in their closet doing outfit of the days. Yeah. And they got people, literally in their closet. I'm like, I got a walk-in closet. I got clothes in there. I think but it's not my thing, but I'm just saying, we all have a closet. Right. We all have clothes. Somebody's going to like your style.
Right. So whatever, when I never wanted to be on YouTube. It was like, no, I'm too old.
But do you know the money they make on YouTube?
Right. I was like, I'm too old for YouTube. It's a million people crafting on YouTube. Like, you know what? No. Let me tell you something. I, it's crazy. That's all I can say.
I'm
It
trying to
it
get over on that
happened
YouTube money next.
right.
That's 2024 YouTube game.
It happened overnight, and then it was like, okay, well, podcast. It's just like things just start opening up, and before you know it, you're in it, and you don't even know how you got in it, and people are watching, and you have these subscribers, and whatever. As a matter of fact, and I've not been doing it a long time, and my numbers don't look anything like yours by no means. But today I hit 1,000 subscribers, and I was
I
like,
saw that.
what happened? Like, how did it? I don't even know. But I'm super jazzed about it, and I'm like, people may not understand, but listen,
You're
that was like
consistent.
100 million subscribers to me.
You're
You know what I
consistent.
mean? So I'm like,
That's the thing. You're consistent. It's so funny because I was never on social media. I had a Facebook account that I only looked at my family's kids' pictures on before 2019. Once the pandemic started, I started my health and wellness business. Did really well in it, but the pandemic hit. I used to have spa parties at my house. I was rising up, doing well in that business, and I was like, well, I can't stop just because we can't meet in person. I'm doing too well, so I took it to social media. I hired a 21-year-old girl to teach me about Instagram because I did not have an Instagram account. A lot of stuff went over my head, but I caught the basic thing, which is be consistent. That's one thing that I feel like as entrepreneurs to be successful, like you said, you just need a network, but you also need to be consistent. And that's why you hit 1,000 followers, because you're consistently on here doing lives, finding guests. It is not hard. It is not easy to do what you're doing. I'm gonna tell you, it's a lot of work. And to be able to show up professionally, you have a really nice YouTube page. It's just really consistent. And I think that's what a lot of people lack is. I have people ask me all the time, well, how do you run 3 Instagram pages and TikTok? I'm on every platform. And I've had brand deals. That's my goal for social media. It's a business.
for sure.
I'm not on here for fun.
Sure. Right. Exactly.
I got other stuff I can do.
Hard.
And I treat it truly like a business that I've been able to partner with Johnson & Johnson and Pinterest and Tylenol and other brands. But it goes back to consistency because my stuff is not the greatest. I've seen people that edit stuff way better than mine. Like, I was shocked when they asked me, but I was like, you know what? My husband's like, don't be so shocked. And that's why I said, don't be so shocked you hit 1,000. Your page is very consistent and clean, down from your YouTube thumbnails to your profile picture to what your page is about. And the fact that you come on here with video on a consistent basis. A lot of people just refuse to show up the way the algorithm is telling them to show up. And in business, you have to show up the way the people that's buying tell you to show up.
You are absolutely correct. And I used to have this thing where like, it's got to be perfect. Everything's got to be. And I'm like, you know what? No, it doesn't. No, it doesn't. And it just has to be consistent. That's really what it is, because no one's perfect. So they like to see the bloopers and the this and the that. You know what I mean? I'm like, you know what? I'm here for all of that. So, yeah, I definitely would say the same thing. It's nothing that I ever thought I would be, but I'm really glad that I am here. And so I always say that the pandemic was a really bad thing, but there were some really good things that came out of that pandemic. I mean, social media and the way that people show up and being able to have the reach that you have for people wherever. I mean, think about it. I'm in Maryland, you're in Georgia. It's just, what I mean? Probably wouldn't have even happened had it not been for the pandemic, right? So I totally get it. And it doesn't even require, I don't have fancy stuff. I mean, when I started off, it was my phone. Then I moved up to the Yeti, or you know what I mean? So you don't even need a lot.
No.
Be able to get on here and to get started. But
I keep saying I'm going to buy this camera, this Nikon camera, because I always use up all my storage on my phone because I'm shooting video all the time.
Yeah.
And my husband's like, your phone is just fine. I just got you a nice phone. But I'm like, I keep using the storage. And then when it's time for me to record, I miss certain things because I'm out of storage. So I'm either thinking about getting this camera, but my photographer is telling me I need these certain lenses. And I'm like, well, I'm not spending $200 on the lens. I'm not professional. I don't record like that.
Yeah.
But so I decided I'm going to get a little USB that downloads the stuff onto like a little hard drive through your phone.
Okay. Mm-hmm.
Yes, I said I'm going to try to do that instead. So, some stuff that just keeps you in your craft, you don't have to spend a lot on it. Like I did StreamYard for years. And then I was looking to do a lot more remote recording.
Mm-hmm.
So that's why I went over to Riverside to record through them. But StreamYard was my go-to. I love StreamYard. I loved it. It's really good platform, but they have so many things out there that you don't have to spend a lot of money on
You
starting your
don't.
business.
But it
And
goes back to networking because if you don't know what you don't know, so you need to
yeah,
talk to someone. Like I never heard of the platform that you just talked about. You know what I mean? So it's like you don't know what you. And a lot of times, like I bought a fancy camera and I prefer to use my phone. It's sitting over there looking at me right now,
yeah.
but I can't tell you the last time that I hit the on button because it's like my phone is just so much more convenient. So sometimes we get into the gadgets and all of that kind of stuff, and it's like we don't need all those bells and whistles. We just need to push play, keep it pushing.
Be
So.
consistent. Wow, congratulations on your
Well,
1,000
thank you.
subscribers.
Thank you. I
Yeah.
really, really appreciate that. And you and I are going to be talking more because we need to get into some things. Make sure we stay in touch and network. I
Yes.
have thoroughly enjoyed this time. I've learned so much because I didn't know all of that was about radiology and all of that. So the next time I have to go in, I'm going to thank my tech because
Yeah.
I realize now they do a lot of work.
Yeah, and make sure they are a registered radiologic technologist because some people in certain states, I think Maryland has a license. I think they do have a licensure state. So some people are only allowed to do limited radiology. So
Okay.
they take a 6-month course in some states that are licensed, but they're not registered radiologic technologists. There's a difference. They can't
Got
inject any dyes. They only can
Okay.
shoot like basic x-rays, chest, abdomen, feet, those kind of things like that. Work in doctor's offices. They can't work in hospitals
Gotcha.
because the more advanced technology and radiation is being used. So you have registered radiologic technologists, which go to school for at least 2 years minimum, and they take a national certification, and they can do the whole gamut of everything and even go on to other modalities in radiology.
Gotcha. So it's a whole lot that goes into it, people. Check out who you got x-raying you and touching you and all of that kind of good stuff. But yeah, I have thoroughly enjoyed this.
I
I
have
appreciate
to.
you taking your time with me. I'm going to end this live, guys. But let me ask you this before I end. So, are you ever looking for people to come and work for you? Like you mentioned, certain jobs you wanted your husband to do and things like that. Are you ever looking for people?
I don't do the staffing part anymore. I actually just
Okay.
closed that part. I do more referrals, so I refer people to other jobs if I have them, but I don't usually do the
Okay.
staffing anymore. I've shut that part of the business down, and transferring more over into speaking. So I speak at schools. So if
Okay.
any schools are looking for
Tell them how
folks,
they can find you, where they can get to you.
you can look me up on ccimagingservices.com, or you can do a couple of rad techs. That's a couple of rad techs on TikTok. You can find me on Instagram, and you can find me on Facebook, and you can look me up on LinkedIn under Chaundria Singleton.
And I'm gonna tell you, you will laugh because her TikToks and stuff are hilarious.
Thank you. I try to be fun and educational at the same time. My personality is really fun. In
Well, I
business,
love those glasses. I can tell with those glasses that you are fun. I
oh,
love
thank you.
those
Yeah.
glasses.
Yeah. I'm a lot of fun when you know me outside of work and, spiritual things. I'm fun there too, but it's a different kind of fun. You
Sure,
you,
sure.
you can't show everybody
No, you
your
can't give them everything. I understand. I understand. Well, again, I appreciate it. I thank everyone who's in the chat. I was talking so much, I didn't get a whole lot of chat, but it's people in there making statements. You can go back and look at them once it uploads on YouTube. I appreciate everybody. If you haven't already gone to my channel and subscribe, please go and do that. Chaundria, as she mentioned, also has a channel. Go subscribe over there too. Check out her podcast. Check out my podcast. We are on all the things you can find us. So, again, thanks for hanging out with us. I'm going to end this live stream. Chaundria, if you just hang on 1 second, I'd appreciate it.
Thank you for having me.
No problem.